Fargo this week opened up very creepy. It was, we're close to Halloween. It's October, and man, this episode had that feeling. I was watching a couple old horror films, and then I turned over to Fargo just expecting, another typical episode of, two rival gangs. And what we got is about 5 to 10 minutes of just very creepy television between what appeared to be some kind of ghost, ghoul, death, whatever you want to call it, visiting Etherita right outside of her door. And then an interesting montage of where the characters were leading into the Ring of Fire sequence. Before we dive into all the details as far as the story, what did you guys think of the tone and sort of the horror elements that opened the episode?
The fact that you said ghouls made me think of Always Sunny, and I couldn't stop playing that scene over my head. Or Charlie's interest. What are you interested in? Ghouls? What? But I loved how this episode started. Immediately made me think of not ghouls, but it made me think of kind of those movies that are Christmas movies, but aren't necessarily Christmas movies. Like Die Hard, like those kind of things where they take place around Christmas, but they're not focused around Christmas. It was a cool little tie-in. I think it's going to come into play. You look at families being in town. I think that's going to be an important thing going forward from this episode. But I like the tone it set right from the jump with, the fire, the Christmas stuff, like everything, like back to back. It set the tone very early, and I really did enjoy this episode quite a bit.
Yeah, the supernatural stuff was very unexpected. This is the first season of Fargo I've ever watched, and I just thought, I know it's not really based on true events, but since they put that disclaimer there at the beginning of every episode for stylistic reasons, I kind of assumed they'd stay more grounded, if anything, so I didn't expect this, and I guess later on in the episode, it kind of alludes, and, those events lead me to believe that this is a sort of... like an allegory for death looming, in this household, in a way. Not so much that this will affect the story, whatever this creature is, but that it is, meant to represent something, a concept.
I agree with that, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But before that, welcome to Pulp Mythos. I'm Brian here with Spencer and Larry, and yes, we're reviewing Fargo Season 4, Episode 4, The Pretend War. That's the title. If you've not subbed to the channel, please do so. There's a lot of content on this channel. We just finished up the boys reviews, Raised by Wolves. We're doing, as you can see, Fargo, Lovecraft Country. We'll be starting our Bly Manor, Haunting of Bly Manor this week with the first 2 episodes. So a lot of content coming to the channel. Hit the sub button, hit the thumbs up, leave us a comment. We love interacting with the audience. And yeah, so I agree, Larry. I think if you look at the fact that Ethelrita, she's in her room, and there are certain events which we'll talk about later that some decisions she makes that I think bring even more heat on the family. But this thing is sitting out her door, sort of, and it looks back at her, which brings fear. And then we jump ahead to the washing of the money, and we saw where that leads, and this thing coming out of the bathtub where the actual money was being washed. It felt as if the show was telling us death is looming around the Smutney family from all angles.
I thought that was, and that was the vibe I got from the corpse-like being. It made me feel like it represented death, like the Grim Reaper. But why? I understand that it's a mortuary, but like you said, why would it be outside of Ethelrita's room? Why would it be focusing on her? And she didn't really seem all that surprised to see it, although she was scared. She didn't seem like, oh my God, what the fuck is this?
Larry, what would you have done in that exact same scenario?
What I would have done, man. I would have lost it. I wouldn't be in there anymore, and I wouldn't be in that house for the rest of the night. Like, how I react to those kind of things. For one, anything that seems the slightest bit, paranormal. Not that I believe in any of that, but as I've told you before, I don't believe in death, but I believe in murder. So I would not be there. Like, but yeah, it seemed to me that at first, before we got later in the episode, that Ethelrita, she's a very smart character, and honestly, some of these scenes where it looks like she's investigating things or she's trying to figure out things, she lingers on things too much, and she always seems like she's a little bit like she's investigating something. Like, to me, at first, and it still may be, and it still may represent this as well as death. It was kind of a scene of her piecing things together, and like something in her subconscious just sort of, just triggering the idea of that she's in danger. Just sort of piecing, like she's got a lot of little pieces to the puzzle, to the full puzzle of what's going on in this town. And I feel like in the earlier scene, it was just that. It was just sort of to give you the feel that she for some reason felt a bit of anxiety about her situation at this moment. And it would make sense too, given that there's so much going on, and she knows bits and pieces, like that her aunt is on the run, and that she was in prison, and that her family owes money to what appears to be gangsters. There's a lot of danger around her, that's just imminent and very and very much in close proximity, but she has no idea what's going on. So I imagine it was more of a sort of premonition or sort of a feeling of dread that it was supposed to represent for her in that first scene.
Is it Calameda? Is that how you say the guy's
Yes,
name?
but guess what his real name is?
What?
Oh man,
Giatano.
Bullshit.
No way.
I swear to fucking God, I looked it up because I was like, he looks like he's from The Godfather. Like he legit did, but I was like, that movie was too long ago. So I was like, let me look it up. Calamente's real name is Giatano. So
Well,
see.
he's the character that was sitting in with the rabbi in the last episode to do the hit on Cannon's son, which didn't go through, and he's transporting a large cache of weapons for the Italians. Cannon's crew straight up takes him, kills one of his guys, and then leaves him with an interesting new scar on his face, which was a very gruesome scene. This all played into that creepy opening sequence. And then the Fargo thing came out. I actually watched that opening a second time. I was really into it.
Yeah, it was
That's
a cool
I love
scene.
the way they do those.
That's going to have major repercussions. So Cannon said he's going to sell 200 of the guns, right, to someone in Fargo, which means he's keeping 100. At least that's what I assumed from that conversation, because he may need them, if they're going to war. How do you think these weapons are going to play in? And do you also? It's funny how this season's not set in Fargo, but they keep finding ways to reference Fargo.
I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I thought the scene was brilliant too. Like and I think that the way they planned that, I also think that was some more of Dr. Senator's genius from the war. The way they were signaling everybody with each other with the whistles and everything. The the fire they set, the trap they set for the truck and everything. Like the signaling with the whistles, I thought was pretty smart, and like that reminded me. I don't know if either of you played. Well, I think I know both of you haven't played it, but that reminded me very much of the Last of Us Part 2, where there's a faction that you interact with that signal each other with whistles. Just and that's just sort of a military tactic that they use that throws you off because you don't hear them communicate with each other. I just thought it was genius, and it was a nice little touch, and I think it shows that we're going to see more tricks of the trade in the future from Dr. Senator.
Well, in The Wire, this other show that Larry has still not watched, they they do a lot of whistling too.
Yes,
It's
they do.
like a non-communication communication.
Yeah.
So like each set of people, it means something different. Maybe each situation, if I whistle like this, it's a code that's very easy to come up with on a very short notice that is not unbreakable, but pretty unbreakable because it's like a cue as opposed to, trying to Morse code something. It's just,
Or they just scream, Omar's coming.
yes, which was so good.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like you said, it's not unbreakable, but by the time you crack the code, it's like, is it too late? Once you've heard those whistles. Like,
Well, speaking of Dr. Senator, let's jump to the diner scene. We have a second diner scene. We had one last week, and we have one this week, in which he's basically asking the Italians, what the hell's going on? Because you guys, your house is not in order.
right? Yeah, and that was again part of their plan from last week to sort of intercept them and piss them off in this way in order to figure out what's going on. And what he discovered was what he expected, that the two brothers are at war. And Dr. Cinder is asking, basically asking him, like, who's head of your household, who's in charge over there? Because they've got a deal with the Italian gang, but it doesn't matter if they're at war with each other and one hand's doing one thing and the other hand's doing something else.
Well, I thought that them kind of going back and forth and Dr. Senator calling them out on it brought everything to light. So to me, the repercussions of him, and I don't remember what they call the conciliary. Like, I think that's who that was.
Yeah.
But he, his like part in all of this was, I was real curious as to see which way he would go, because he was kind of riding the fence a little bit. So once after, Dr. Senator told him, hey, all this shit's going on and we don't know who's calling the shots, but we're almost at war. And if you guys don't stop, that's where we're headed. So, when he found out and he was telling Gaetano and then Josto found out, I was way more interested after that Dr. Senator scene to see how shit was going to go down. And I wasn't disappointed. I loved the next couple scenes.
Right. Yeah. Like, but yeah, that whole scene where he seems sort of confused about it and he doesn't know anything. I'm still iffy on that because he seemed in the loop later on. He seemed like he was in the loop before Josto was, because he's in that meeting where they're planning and everything with the younger brother. It's like, so are you, like, my question with him is like, is he playing both sides, or is he just following orders to whoever hands him orders first? Like, what's his angle in all this?
I think he may not have known that Josto and Gaetano weren't on the same side.
That's true.
Yeah, I think he thought, like you just said, he may not have known that they were on opposing sides. They were just like, hey, do this. And he's like, oh, okay. He just assumed that they were talking until the Dr. Senator scene. And he's like, oh, shit.
And he was getting a dump of info because, he's hearing about the hit, the assassination attempt, which he's like, whoa, that's crazy. And then the burglary, which he absolutely has no clue about.
Right.
So he's just like, well, shit, I don't know, man. Speaking of Josto, him and he finds Nurse Mayflower.
That was glorious.
Yes, so they have a nice little scene together. She's an interesting character. So he finds her, and obviously they have a nice, there's a little sex scene going on.
Don't kink shame him.
Yeah. Hey, man. Hey. I'm not at all. But there's an interesting line of dialogue in that scene, which I'm sure you probably caught, where he's going on about his frustration, specifically the hospital director who he wants dead. And she just so happens to have gotten a new job. And I'm curious where that's going to go now.
Right. Yeah, because she wants to impress Josto. So, what better way to do that? And, I mean, she mistook his intentions last time when she killed his father, or maybe she didn't. I guess we'll figure that out later, whether she was just doing her own thing or if she was like, I get your meaning, wink wink, and just took it wrong, But I feel like, yeah, Nurse Mayflower may try something again. I'd be surprised if she didn't. At this point, she's about as ominous a character as as if when you see the Joker show up in a Batman movie or something. You never know what Orietta Mayflower is going to do.
I don't know if we're that far in because I don't know how you have this set up, Brian, but the whole closet when you find
Yes.
out about
Yeah.
Loretta
I
and
mean, we can jump into that. So
okay.
she, Etherita comes in, and she had promised her a couple episodes back that she would give her money to organize her thing. So when Josto leaves to go deal with his situation, Etherita comes in, does her job, but then she finds the death closet. And yeah, you can explain all the shit she finds in that closet and the critical errors she makes.
Well, she starts looking at the closet because she doesn't think nothing of it at first, and then she starts trying to read all the labels, and there's like what is it? Lot. It's the same thing that they were taking in Tombstone. The Lotta. It's like a cough syrup, but it gets you high. It's like an opiate cough syrup. But they also had the Epicac, which she put in the pie. So a lot of the things that she's looking at are things that she's already used so far in this season. You also look at a lot of the little trinkets and um, like different pins and stuff. But what I noticed on top of what they were pointing out essentially, which is all the news clippings of all the people death and then all the trophies she took in the little box. But if you look at a lot of there's it looked like a TV tray type thing above it, but it had a bunch of medals in it, like military
Yeah.
type things. So I started looking up what some of them are. A lot of those were U.S. pins. There was like, I think it's the third ID. It's like an engineering brigade, the castle
Shit,
looking one.
she was in the war.
I
That would
don't know. That's
make
that's
sense.
what I'm
This is
saying.
1950. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So
She may have been overseas.
yeah. So a lot of the things that were on there were pointing in that direction. She also had a bunch of ranks on there, like the little patches that go on their shoulders or whatever. I don't know what those are called. They're
Well,
they
yeah.
got a name, but anyway, she had a bunch of those on there, but they weren't like various ranks. They seemed to go in order. So
Hmm.
that's why I'm thinking this is her stuff because it's really I don't think that those were trophies because she had a box full of trophies of people she killed. So I think that's her stuff. I think that she was a nurse or medic in the military. I don't know whether it was our military or the Irish. Like I don't know which faction of military she was with yet, because I think that's going to play a big deal here shortly. But a lot of the little medals and stuff were U.S. military. So I don't know.
Yeah, I
And
noticed that as
remember,
as
I was
well.
just going to say too, remember she speaks a shit ton of languages, which would also make sense if she was over at war trying to learn, the different regions and the different languages that
She
she
could have been a
speaks.
spy or something as
Yeah.
well. I mean, I didn't even connect the year. I didn't even think about the fact that yeah, she may have, you know, been a nurse in the military or something more. There may be way more shit to her than I was even thinking. You're right. I was just thinking, yeah, serial killer, but no, there could be more layers to that.
I mean, you really pieced some stuff together here. Yeah, I know. Like I thought at first that was just medals of some of her victims, but yeah, that would make sense. That would explain the languages, all the languages she speaks and everything, and you know, and her seemingly she has a love of travel, and
Oh
just
shit! I'm sorry to interrupt. Remember, you pointed out there was a guy standing in the street. This was like in
yeah,
the second episode, and clearly that was completely different than the police.
yeah,
Because that
yeah.
could she be involved in some spy shit? And maybe there's people hunting her, and maybe now my mind's open to all kind of possibilities. I didn't think of any of that,
Yeah, because that was never explained.
unless that's another ghost.
Maybe
Because
it
now
was
that's a
death.
possibility. Hey, maybe.
Maybe it was death because they were supposed to, she dropped that pie off with the intention of killing somebody. And that same ghost was right at, what did you call her? Swanee? That's what you called her.
Hmm.
It was right at Swanee's side later, in this episode. So it could have been the ghost, or like you said, Brian, it could be somebody looking for her specifically.
Speaking of Swanee and Ethelrita's aunt, I find it weird. Well, since we're talking about, you know, Nurse Mayweather. I keep calling her Nurse Mayweather. Nurse Mayflower.
That's Floyd. Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah. Like, I find it weird that Eltharita's aunt dropped the subject of the pie so quick. Like, she seemed to have some idea of what
Yeah,
happened,
that
and
bugged
then
me too.
it seems like she was catching on to Nurse Mayflower, and then the subject changed, and she just dropped it out of nowhere. I'm like, you're just gonna let that go? You seem to know what's going on here. You know that she was poisoned. That was weird to me.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I guess in the heat of the moment, there were a lot going on with the money and everything, and it's maybe
Well,
didn't think it was as big of a deal. I don't know.
well, yeah, and clearly, the aunt character, well, she's a little bit crazy for one. Like her mind's a bit scattered. That's been obvious.
Um, so Josto is confronted by Rabbi, who basically tells him, "Yo, I'm with you. I'm on your side. You're the boss. This is what went down, just so you know." And this leads to a confrontation. Larry, you sort of called it last week that when you stand up to Giatano, he's possibly going to just sort of back down. That's what we got. Now, to be fair, Josto had a gun, and I love the line. This is a gunfight, asshole.
Yeah, right.
He goes to pull a gun, his knife out. And he's like, "This is a gunfight, asshole." Interesting, sequence of events, and then that leads. Do I want to go? Yeah. So Josto ends up calling in the cop, and I'm trying to remember all the sequences. Yeah, Duffy. So he ends up calling in the cop that's basically a dirty cop for them, and they have a whole meeting. And he basically tells him, "I want you to put pressure on the Cannon gang." And then he tells his other dude, "I need you to go to New York and possibly bring some guys back." So he's plotting against the Cannons as well at the moment, and we'll talk about Duffy after that.
Well, I thought his freak out was fantastic because it was very much what he needed to do. He's got some division in his ranks. These people are trying to follow Giatano, but if they see him as a leader now instead of just somebody who can be pushed around, they'll actually start following, orders. And as soon as he was just like, "Who the fuck do you think I am?" Like he started losing his shit on him. And then immediately they fell in line. And I think that will help him tremendously going forward. Now, I don't know exactly. I think they're all going to die, but I think that it will help him command respect, and it's going to be Giatano's undoing because of that.
Right. Yeah, and on top of that, I mean, it showed that he was the guy in control. That not only did he call out his brother, did he put an end to all that, and he called him out and put him in line, and then after all was said and done, he turned his back to them to show them that he wasn't even afraid of this group. That he expected them to fall in line, and that he wasn't afraid of his brother. That he knew his brother wouldn't try anything. So he, I think checked Giatano enough to put him in his place to the point where there shouldn't be too many issues. Like he might try something again, but he's not going to step on his toes on the level he did this time. I don't think. If anything, we may see Giatano have beef with other characters. Such as
Duffy.
Such as Duffy. Yeah.
So Duffy is clearly aware that something is off in this town and with this police department, with the cop he was assigned, because he's working around him. Clearly he's trying to get rid of him, and it's not working. And so he follows him to the place. He gets out, and I legit for a moment thought he was actually truly trying to preach to Giatano. He's a Mormon priest. But then I realized I think he sees something here, and he's investigating. Now, to the extent of where that's going to go and what exactly his plan is, does he really give a shit? I don't know. But clearly they were frustrated with him, and they had their little exchange, and he pulls his carrots out and eats them. He's gonna yet again. There's so many moving pieces to this story, and he's another one of them where anything could happen. with this particular character. Where do you think it goes from here with Duffy now that he's interacted directly with the Italians?
I thought that was great because to me, they didn't know. I don't think that he was a cop at first. I don't know that they knew who he was
I don't think they
because
did.
no, because even once he alluded to who he was, they basically just stood their ground, but they stopped talking shit to him. But prior to that, they were like, "Who the fuck are you? Get out of here!" Like threatening him. But showing that he was unafraid is showing me what kind of character he's going to be. And I thought that was a pretty.
But he's also yes.
Okay,
It's
this
not too
dog
loud.
was chewing on a stick.
Okay. But he's a U.S. Marshal, so he's hiding behind the badge to a degree because if they were to hurt him or kill him, that would be a federal situation. You know what I mean? That would be a problem for them. They don't want that kind of heat. So he's I think he maybe.
Well, no, it's not a local cop.
Exactly.
Where they bought everybody else, they can make it look like an accident. However, yes, that they're smart, but it also is showing me that Gaetano's not this loose cannon either. Once he knows who he is, he doesn't keep pressing the issue. Because I just feel like I still think that Gaetano, like Larry alluded to before, that he's a giant, he's all talk, but I think that this shows that he's not got everything under control as of right now either.
Well, yeah, and this is a point where Gaetano actually shows a bit more brains than his brother for once, because he seems to recognize the guy's a cop after he says he's going to wait for his friend out here. Otherwise, I feel like they would have beaten the crap out of him if they didn't realize he was a cop. But he recognizes him, so he backs off. But while that's going on, simultaneously, Josto is in his office talking to the dirty cop that they work with, telling him to put pressure on Cannon, and and telling him to sort of manipulate things in their favor. I think, which is the wrong move on their part, because while this marshal's in town, he's drawn all this he's drawing all this attention to himself and his gang, which may also be his downfall.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. I think that he's trying to make moves. He's trying to be the big boss, and putting pressure on Cannon he thinks is a good move. But like you said, he's not aware that there's this marshal in town who's snooping around and seems very interested in the what's going on in this town, and that's going to play a role in all this, because once that cop starts doing shit, he's going to start questioning why.
Well, that's my point. I think he is aware, because he's asking the cop that's working with him to do things, and he seems to be alluding that there's too much heat, and he's getting a lot of pushback from his guys, including the dirty cop, and that's when he kind of flips a little bit. But he's trying to tell him that now is not the time for this, because the marshal's there.
And then on top of that, we may have a whole nother set of characters coming down from New York,
right?
Which can be a whole other factor if that in fact happens. Anything else on that, Spencer? You there?
What's it?
Yeah, I was talking, but it was muted. Sorry.
Oh.
I was trying to. The dog was chewing on the damn stick, and it kept getting louder because he kept bringing it to me. So I was like, "Well, let me mute it while I'm not talking." And I started talking when there was a pause, and then when you're like, "Hello," I'm like, "Fuck." But yeah, I think that's going to play, like you said, a lot in later. The New York stuff, I think, is going to be the biggest variable, because if he's able to bring a bunch of people back, regardless of whether he's a U.S. Marshal or whatever, these people may be crazy enough to just be like, "Fuck it, get rid of them." So I don't know what that holds as far as where the stories are going to go from there. But I do think that the New York stuff is going to be the biggest change in pace, because we don't know what happens. We weren't one of the few that were able to get the episodes early, but didn't they say episode 7 was the big twist episode?
It's either 7 or 8. Yeah,
but that may be very well
crazy shit happen. So
That may very well be when the New York people show up. Like, I don't know. Like, I think that is a big uh, cog in that wheel, and I think that it's going to shake things up quite a bit.
Yeah, it may well be that, or given the show's nature, them showing up may be played for laughs in a way.
they just all get killed or something.
Exactly. Yeah,
Good.
and not even by Cannon's guys. They're
Uh,
just
It
they're
could
just
be like a bus
sharing a
crash,
treat.
like they hit a patch of ice or something, and
Yeah,
it's
black
like
ice.
Doyle's rule. Like they're in like a van with them, and it's a Doyle's rule. A Doyle's rule.
So Lloyd Cannon confronts Rabbi, and basically for two reasons. One, he wants to hear from him. Okay, what went down? What the hell is going on? As far as his sons, they had a nice little exchange, and then just straight up offers him a deal. He's like, "Look, they don't give a shit about you. Uh, I'll give you money. Give me my son back." And for whatever reason, and I'm still not completely sure, and I'm assuming they're going to go into this hopefully. Why is he so loyal to the Fata family? Because he refuses the deal, and he basically says, "Look, I'll protect your son, but I'm not going to get him to you." And then even the exchange of Cannon basically telling him, "Well, you will die a slow, painful death if anything does happen," and he says that sounds fair. Why has he? I don't know if he feels like this is some kind of penance because of his betrayal of his family, but like, why in his mind does he have to stay loyal to the Fata family?
Well,
I
to
think.
me,
Go ahead, Larry.
yeah, to me, Rabbi Mulligan, he's not dumb. He understands that he can only betray so many gangs before the next one that accepts him is like, yeah, nice try. We're not going to give you the chance, even though he had good reason for betraying his father. It would seem like a sign of a pattern to anybody. It's like, oh yeah, you betrayed all these gangs and all the Jewish gang, the Irish gang, the Italian gang, and they all died, and we're supposed to take you in and let you do the same. Yeah, nice try. So I think he understands that there's a good chance that Cannon would probably kill him outright at that point, just out of distrust.
Well, I think too that you don't really know who's going to win just yet, and with the way that he has operated in the past, he is, like we've said before, he's a survivor. He doesn't want to give up. He doesn't. No, I was just going to keep singing Beyonce, but like they, I think that he is playing his hand very close to his chest because he does not want to necessarily choose a side yet, because he knows that although the Italians don't really value him either, neither does Cannon's people. He knows that if he switched sides, they're not going to be any better to him or any more loyal to him than the Italians were. So I think this is about survival for him. He just doesn't want to choose sides just yet.
Yeah, that's very possible. Survival, definitely. Do you think we'll?
That is a good point, because one thing he tells his son does say a lot about his character, that it's a dog eat dog world.
Yeah.
That's clearly, that seems to be Rabbi Mulligan's philosophy.
Do you think there's anything in his past we don't know, or do you think all the cards are on the table as far as what they've already told us?
Oh, I don't think that's all on the table yet at all. It's, they keep kind of alluding to, like you said, his penance. They showed that his dad basically threw him under the bus twice. We don't know why. We don't know if there was, maybe he was not a bastard child, but
Because remember,
maybe he hated the mom, or
the rule was you're supposed to give your youngest son. That's the rule. When he did the second trade, they didn't do that. They sent him a second time. He was not the youngest son at that point. So there was definitely something odd within his own family as far as how he was treated. But whether or not we get an in-depth, breakdown of that, who knows?
Well, I feel like, and if we don't get a further explanation, I feel like the explanation is that it was a clear sign to him and us, the audience, that his dad's intent was to to not honor the deal,
Be
that
an
he was going to
asshole.
betray him. Yeah.
So, two massive mistakes were made in terms of the Smutney family. The first being Thurman Smutney not necessarily taking the money. I don't think that was the critical error. It was the way in which he gave it to Loy Cannon. And then, of course, Ethelrita, oh, you snoop in this psychopath's closet, fine. She starts to put it together and starts to get creeped out, and yet she takes property, which just so happens to be the Fada family ring, which could link her to that, to that whole situation. And then on top of that, she leaves her journal in the closet. So both characters made huge mistakes, I think, which will possibly lead to very bad things. Going back to the whole idea of that death is following this family, I think it's no coincidence that the opening of the episode sort of connects back with the ending of the episode, and then her mother, just sort of almost that Bad Omen-esque vibe that she just sort of felt it. It was almost supernatural. Like she just felt like we're fucked. Like she knew it. She just felt it. So both of those cases, yeah. How do you want to approach that?
I couldn't stop laughing when he took the money and he kept asking questions. She kept saying, "Don't ask questions. It's the money fairy," like all this shit. And then like he could smell it. So she did. That was the grossest shit. Like I don't get grossed out by a lot of stuff as far as movies and TV and stuff go. But vomit, for whatever reason, is my bugaboo. I do not like it. However, when people vomit, it makes me laugh. So I don't know. Like it's really weird. I guess the noise makes me laugh a lot. Like the like that. But her like wiping it off with her fingers before she put it in the.
It was
like,
a vile sequence.
Yeah.
And she puts it in the
bathtub. Because then you're thinking of it, the chunks getting in the drain. Like it's a whole thing.
Because the tub, like the water was like this yellowish tint. It was so gross. But they had and she keeps smelling it, and it still smells awful. Right? So when she hands him the money, knowing it's gonna smell terrible, like you see him kind of like wince his nose a couple times. So like that whole sequence, I was like, God, this guy's fucking stupid. And he's already showed that he's really dumb several times, with even taking the pie inside, which we, talked about in episode 2. Like he's done so much dumb shit that it's not Ethelrita that's going to be the undoing. It's going to be the dad. But I think that it's pretty telling that the dad is not too bright. However, calling the attention to the Ethelrita stuff, she left that book inside the closet. That's going to draw the attention of the psychopath serial killer who's working for somebody, or maybe she's got her own agenda. I don't know just yet, but drawing her attention back to them, which she had finally given that attention up. After she dropped the pie off, she's like, "Oh, I'm going to go kill this director now." Her focus had shifted away from the Smutney family, but now it's going to be back on them. So there's a couple little pieces there that I think are going to be very interesting here shortly.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there, and they're definitely cornered more than anybody. And the dad, he, and I may have to circle back on this because I don't necessarily want to call him dumb yet, but I think we all know one or two people who have who are just too trusting of every situation in life because nothing's really gone wrong for them yet, and it's and he's that guy. Oh, there's a pie on the porch. Okay, well, that's unusual, but I mean, free pie. And so he just takes the pie in and he takes the money because, once again, hasn't had anything bad happen from being as stupidly trusting as he is yet in life. So, he may just be going with it. Either that or he's just dumb.
I'm not Swanee
sure.
Might disagree. Swanee might disagree that nothing he's done has affected anybody just yet.
Oh yeah, and that's the point. That's not necessarily what I'm saying. Like, not that his actions have affected anybody; it's that they haven't affected him, and probably haven't for most of his life. It's just he's probably been on easy street this whole time, and this is the first time. Who knows? Maybe he lived in a neighborhood where someone could leave a pie on your porch and you could trust it, but he's definitely not there now.
What do you think Cannon does? Because clearly he figured it out at the end. What is Loy going to do?
See, now that's my question because um, the way that they've written this show, they don't tend to go about things as dumbly as characters would in most shows. They tend to think things through, and especially Canon. And if it's Canon and Dr. Senator, then they'll probably and if they've known this couple for a while, they'll probably really think it through because they'll be like, well, he's too much of a trusting idiot to have done this himself. They said it was two women, so it probably wasn't him. Because Cannon's already, just doing his detective work on this and trying to figure out who it was and why it happened. Like, so he may understand that it wasn't him, but that someone close to him did it for him. If anything, he might be more suspicious of the wife than anything.
I think that, I want to say that he's not going to kill him, but I don't know. Because that's kind of one of those things that he'll either use the money and kind of sweep it under the rug like he still doesn't know where the money is so that he doesn't look weak to his people, or he's going to have to kill him.
He's not going to do that. He's not going to let it. I think the question comes to, is it better off to kill them or use them? Could there be a function that they could play into his business?
Well, it's a mortuary. They could easily, bury people. Like it's
exactly. So
well,
I think they go in that direction, maybe.
Yeah, I don't really think it's. I don't think they're going to kill him outright because if anything, he wants more answers because there were two women involved in this, and I'm pretty sure he's not assuming that it was his daughter and his wife who did it.
That too.
So Cannon's going to want some answers. Cannon's going to want to know who's in on this, and Cannon's also going to want, potentially extra confirmation that it wasn't Josto's gang who did that in the first place.
Well, he might kill the sister and Swanee, but not the Smutney family, and like we said, maybe use them, in their ability to get rid of bodies.
Yeah, that could well.
Possibly.
Yeah.
So Larry, what about Etherita? She made a couple choices this episode that could go very badly for her. Her having that ring, it to me is the obvious problem that may come up later.
I know you asked Larry, but I just thought of this, that ring. It's going to make it look like the Smutney family's working with the Irish, and maybe Loy sees that.
That they're working with the
Irish.
The Italians. Yeah, that's a good point. Well, I mean, but they would never trust them with that. That was their father's ring, so it may make it look like to Lloyd, like the Smutneys are playing them both in some way, because they would never trust them with that ring. That's too big. That's too big a deal to give them their father's ring. Like so my theory is like either this whole thing will be pinned on the at least at this point, this is my theory. It'll either be pinned on the Smutneys, or these problems will solve each other in a way, and the evidence that has been gathered and assembled while these forces are converging on each other, the ring and everything, along with everything else, it'll look like Nurse Mayweather is involved, and then we'll definitely find out if she's got that military background you've been talking about, Spencer.
Mayflower.
Mayflower. Did I say Mayweather again?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. One thing I'm going to do, maybe not by the time we're done with this, but I am going to get her name right, and I am going to watch The Godfather and The Wire. And maybe
that's a lot to watch in a week.
I'm about to say they both will take you about the same each. No.
5 episodes.
You should watch. Yeah,
10 episodes. So 50 episodes. 50
you would
hours.
You would appreciate The Godfather, and you would fucking love The Wire. I mean, the fact that you haven't watched The Wire, it's insane.
Well, with the extended cuts of The Godfather, they're about the same.
There's a new cut of 3 coming out that I'm actually, as much as I dislike 3, there is a new cut coming out that I'm curious about.
Well, given how that's gone for me so far, I'm kind of afraid to try to watch it. I don't know what'll happen next. because every time I try, something goes wrong. So
We'll try and watch The Wire.
I'm like, look, we've been trying to watch this movie since our early 20s. So
Look, you know what? Do I want to say this? Maybe it would have to be later, maybe December or January. Maybe we review The Wire,
I'm down.
episode by episode. We run through the whole series.
I'm gonna take like a week off when whatchamacallit drops, when Cyberpunk drops, and I'll just power through it. So
Because I love The Wire, and I would have no issues rewatching it again because it's just a great fucking show.
I watched the first about,
and that way
three-fourths of
you
the
have
first
to watch
season.
it. You would have it would be part of the channel. So maybe, and it is like I've said this before. It's like my favorite show. So yeah, I think we should think about that for real.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be down for that.
It wouldn't take too long. So yeah, we'll probably do that if you're interested in those reviews. They're several years late, but yeah, I think we should do that.
Like, and if we can get through that, I'll watch or read Dune before we get to the Dune movie.
No, you won't.
Yeah, no, you won't.
Yeah, I probably won't. That's probably a lie.
Anything else about this episode? We went through everything basically.
The only thing I was gonna say was that the music that Ethelrita was listening to reminded me of Fallout. Like that's all I could think of when I was listening to it. I was like, it sounds like Fallout, but it was also not English. Whatever she was listening to, they weren't singing in English, which is also
wasn't it French?
I'm assuming, but I don't know. But to me, that shows because
she's learning French.
Yes, but why would Orietta have that?
Well, that goes back to look. Until we didn't talk about this before we recorded. I did not in any way think about the war and the fact that she could have been a part of it. But I absolutely am thinking that now.
Yeah, you really piece some things together with that theory.
So yeah, yeah, absolutely, that makes a lot of sense. Anything else?
I just looked it up to make sure that I was right. It's a U.S. Army pin. If you go back and look at that scene, it's the engineering pin. It's the Corps of Engineers pin. Just, yeah. I wanted to make sure I was right and that it wasn't used like maybe in maybe it wasn't used in French or something like that. But it's a Marine Corps engineer.
Well, that'll give us an answer then. If potentially give us an answer if we can go back and look at that scene and see if the obituary for the soldier in one of the articles that Ethelrita saw, if he was in the engineering corps, then we may have some answers.
This was episode 4. There's still 6 more, so plenty of show left. Very excited. It's been fun. Lovecraft Country next week is the finale. That hurts. But yeah, that review is coming up. No Boys this week. It's over, but you can go watch all of our older Boys reviews. And like I said, we have the first 2 episodes of The Haunting of Bly Manor coming up this week. So yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.